7 days to go. That's right, 7 days. That's all that's left of this summer transfer window, and Celtic have left the bulk of their business to be done late. So it's going to be a very nervy week for some Celtic supporters after a lot of negativity this summer. Will we get the job done? That remains to be seen. But today we have some updates on players that are coming into the club, players that are leaving the club, some that have also been linked that could potentially sign over the next week. God knows what's going to happen. It's going to be hectic. It's going to be crazy. And I'll try my absolute best to keep you going through it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. If you haven't already, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. It would be much appreciated as we head into, and I mean this with no exaggeration, one of the biggest weeks I'll ever have on this channel. Make sure you have that notification bell pressed, because this week we have the second leg of our Champions League qualifier against Kairat Almaty. We have a potential Champions League phase draw on Thursday, or Europa League phase draw on Friday. We have a Glasgow derby this weekend at Ibrox, the first of the season. And the transfer window slams shut on Monday. So we have loads to cover over the next 7 days. A massive 7 days for Celtic, where I think a lot of the feeling around the club will be established moving into the remainder of the 25-26 campaign. So make sure to hit all those buttons. And let's get into today's video. Now, very quickly, let's get this out of the way. I said yesterday I wanted to stop talking about Michel-Ange Balikwisha, but we have a little bit more news on him this morning and his arrival to Celtic, when that should be expected. Anthony Joseph of Sky Sports tweeted this today, that Antwerp winger Michel-Ange Balikwisha is due to arrive in the UK this week to undergo a medical with Celtic. I'm pretty sure that I've seen Sky Sports on TV report that he might already be here as well as of today. With a deal up to £5 million that's been agreed by the clubs. He's verbally agreed terms with Celtic as well. He was left out of the side and he gave his farewells. Yesterday there was images of him at Antwerp. I would just like to correct one of my sentences from yesterday's video where I said he was nowhere to be seen at Antwerp. He was given a farewell after the game, and he will sign for Celtic this week pending the medical and international clearance. But the details have arrived of that deal. We're looking at something up to the value of £5 million, which was always the price that was sort of floated. It feels like Celtic held out for a long time in this window to make that cheaper than £5 million. The fact that we've ended up paying that anyway says that we may have been able to get this done a lot sooner. But hey, listen, he's here and that's all I care about. He's due to arrive in the UK this week, due to go through his medical over the coming days or hours, and we could see him announced as a Celtic player very, very soon. Stephen McGowan also detailed yesterday on Pressbox, hosted by Graham Spears, that he believes the transfer, or the contract I should say, will be a 4-year deal, and that should be tied up in the coming days as well. So a £5 million transfer, a 4-year contract. You would assume he becomes one of Celtic's higher earning players as well. Interesting to see what Brendan Rodgers does with that front line now, as he's a natural left winger. We discussed Michel-Ange Balikwisha's pending arrival in more depth yesterday. If you haven't seen yesterday's video, I'll point you in that direction, but you would assume his job now is to come in and become a starter as early as Sunday at Ibrox. I really think that he should just be ushered into that side. I'm not usually a fan of deep-ending players like that and throwing them into the thick of it, but you know, he's a big signing. He's got a lot of expectation behind him now, and hopefully he delivers. But I'm really excited to see what he can do in a Celtic shirt. I have a good feeling about him, and hopefully he repays that faith when he starts bagging the goals for Celtic. Please, we need them. Thanks. Now, I brought up Stephen McGowan a moment ago, and Michel-Ange Balikwisha wasn't the only person he spoke about on that press box appearance. In fact, he's given a little bit more insight as to what Celtic fans should expect of these next 7 days, and hopefully he's right. Always reliable, of course, Stephen McGowan, but this is what he went on to say in press box, that he doesn't think that it'll end with just Balikwisha. He expects Uruguayan left-back Marcel Sirache to be a good chance of happening, and he also thinks that a striker and a second winger will come in as well. At least that's certainly the goal and the aim. But the big question is, Why are they leaving it so late? He went on to question the inherently cautious and conservative approach of the Celtic board and talks about the gamble of Champions League qualification, which I'm sure we all agree with. He's bang on the money with that appraisal, but the most important thing to focus on here is that Celtic are apparently moving forward with the goal of a left-back in Marcelo Sirache, another winger and a striker. And I think if Celtic could sign all of those on top of Michel-Ange Balikwisha this week, it would pull back a lot of Celtic fans from the negative side of things to being more positive. It is just weird that we've left it all so late. But the big question is, who will that other winger be? Because during this recording, as I've been speaking, we have a huge update from Sky Sports, which doesn't help Celtic's case in the pursuit of Calvin Stengs, because as of this afternoon, and quite literally about 10 minutes ago at time of recording, Anthony Joseph of Sky has reported that Leicester City have open talks with Feyenoord around Calvin Stengs, because they are of course open to selling him in this window. We've been through that a number of times on the channel, as early as a couple of weeks ago, but in particular last week when Robin van Persie openly said he was willing to sell him. Feyenoord and Leicester City are now in talks. He goes on to say that Celtic have also explored the conditions of a deal. He's confirmed that Celtic are actively looking at it, but are more likely to follow up only if we make it to the Champions League, which would be tomorrow night, of course. And quite frankly, I don't know if that's good enough. There is a story in collaboration with Rob Dorset, another Sky reporter, and it isn't the first time that Leicester City have been mentioned. Because this report from late last night in Holland by De Telegraaf and Marcel van der Kraan say that two clubs in Europe outside of Celtic have been looking at Calvin Stengs, one being Leicester City and the other at Pisa in Italian Serie A. Stengs is of course a man that looks like he will move. Leicester City interested and now have went in and inquired about the situation. Celtic now face competition on a relatively cheap deal that they could have already been advancing in by now. I think Celtic would be foolish to see this news coming out this afternoon and not try to advance a deal. If we don't make the Champions League, fair enough, you don't need to see it through to the very end, but you shouldn't be waiting about and letting Leicester City get in ahead of you. We are a Champions League club with millions in the bank. Calvin Stengs would be a fantastic signing for us, and he would solve a real problem over on the right hand side of the pitch. I don't know why Celtic are waiting to bank on Champions League qualification for a deal that could be less than £5 million. We can afford that. But I must admit, ladies and gents, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here, I don't think Celtic have a chance now. I think that Leicester City are probably going to get this done, because they can go in here and offer the chance of Premier League football next year should they win the championship. They can offer them a decent wage, and they can offer them a little bit of security, which Celtic don't seem to be offering anybody right now. We seem to be so... we're dancing around everything, aren't we? We're being so tentative with our negotiations, both with clubs and with players. Why would he want to come to Celtic after all the reading that's been done over the past couple of weeks? Leicester City probably at this point is a more attractive move for this guy. And I hate saying that aloud, but that feels like the corner that we've backed ourselves into as a club. So Celtic need to act, and they need to act now. We can't hang on till tomorrow night. You know, this is something that if Leicester gets done and sorted today, guy could be flying over for a medical by the time we kick off tomorrow night. Celtic need to move, and I don't like that Leicester have already beat us in here. I don't think that Calvin Stengs is the end-all be-all. He's not the almighty saviour and answer that we need to come in and solve our attacking problems, but I certainly think he's the calibre of talent we should be looking at, and we're letting him get away for a cut price fee as well. This is bad for us. I really do think that, and hopefully Celtic act quickly and change that narrative. Courtesy of 67 Hail Hail, this article was published yesterday with Calvin Stengs' most recent interview, where he spoke about how he's ready to keep playing football and play again after injuries last season, and reiterated the point that people have wrote him off after playing 7 straight years of football. He was injured for a little bit, but he played 7 years straight, and now he's ready to prove himself again. It sounds like he's a man that's ready for a move and he's ready to go elsewhere, and that could be Celtic. Now, I think the only positive that I can take from that Anthony Joseph story a moment ago is that Leicester are only at the stage of inquiring, and that it's still very possible for Celtic to go in and compete should they use the money we have. But we need to do that, and I'm glad to see that Celtic are genuinely interested. But my God, we make life so difficult for ourselves. Keep an eye out on social media over the next few hours or so to see if anything comes up about Calvin Stengs. And Celtic have been linked with a striker this morning off the back of Stephen McGowan's article saying where he expects a striker to arrive at the club. But I have a feeling we're all going to maybe question this one when you see where it's coming from. Pete O'Rourke of Footy Insider has reported that Celtic are considering a late move for Lorient forward Sambu Samano as they look to bolster the attacking options. He did score at the weekend against Rennes in Ligue 1 and has been part of big conversations about an exit, and we're going to look at that in a moment. However, Footy Insider, yes, I know, why am I even bringing it up in this video? Pete O'Rourke, probably the more reliable of the journalists over at Footy Insider, has been right with a few things to do with Celtic in the past. And it's just the only kind of credible striker links, if you want to use the word credible, that we have right now. However, this is the problem, because last night, it was reported that Sambu Samano has agreed personal terms with Widzew Łódź in Poland. But the deal between the clubs hasn't been agreed yet. I've done some reading to see that maybe 2 or 3 bids have actually been rejected already by Lorient, and they're nowhere near the valuation of the player, which maybe does open up the possibility and maybe does bring some credibility to the story that Celtic could go in with a late move. Celtic could trump any offer that Widzew Łódź could put on the table, and probably trump any wage that Widzew Łódź are able to offer the player. So it's not impossible. It's certainly not out of the realms of reality. And it's one to maybe keep your eye on, despite the source of where it's coming from. He's done not too bad in his career. My only reservation would be at the top level. He's not quite been there yet. If you look at his Ligue 1 record, he's only scored 4 goals in 23 games. But it seems like in Ligue 2 and across other places, he's managed to find plenty of goals. He knows where the net is. I don't think there's any denying that. And he's only 24. So, I mean, these early spells in his career, still when he was a young guy getting sporadic minutes. Last season, he was very, very good with 17 goal contributions in 32 league games. I think he does look like a talent. He's just the only reason I'm talking about it. I don't want to spend too long because I'm not sold on the story right now, but he is the only striker that's being mentioned as of this moment in time. So it's all we really can talk about in the way of strikers. But I don't, if I was to hedge my bets, I don't see this one going anywhere right now. Give it 24 hours or so to see if anybody else talks about it, but right now I wouldn't get too carried away. But remember the name for the rest of the week, just in case. And that's about it for today. A lot of updates, actually, for this early in the afternoon. And I expect things to move very, very quickly. Rumours to come and go because we are now into the final week. So, apologies if things are thick and fast and all over the place. You're just going to have to deal with it. And oh, by the way, Marco Tilio is finally leaving the club. I thought I'd throw that in there for you. He has passed his medical at Rapid Vienna and will sign for a deal of around £1.5 million over the next couple of days. But apart from that, that's me for today. Enjoy yourself. I'll see you very, very soon because I imagine we're going to have a lot to talk about. So take care.